Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And the first item of business will be a land acknowledgement statement, which I have not practiced extensively, so bear with me. We acknowledge that Lafayette is part of the unceded ancestral homeland of the Bay Miwok people. The Bay Miwok and neighboring Ohlone people have lived in and moved through this place for thousands of years. They stewarded and shaped this land for hundreds of generations. We express our appreciation and gratitude for this profound legacy, which embraces and contributes to our lives to this day. We will strive to honor this land and strengthen our ties with the indigenous communities that continue to live and work in our East Bay region as our neighbors and community members. We acknowledge and honor them and their ancestors, elders, and next 7 generations. Okay. Next, we will have a roll call. And I will do, first I'll do Planning Commissioner. Vice Chair Radnich.
Present.
Commissioner Heising is absent and excused. Commissioner Mason is absent and excused. Commissioner Sturm.
Present.
Commissioner DeGiorgio.
Present.
And our newest commissioner, and welcome to his first meeting, Commissioner Deming. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Present.
Present. Thank you. And do I turn it over to you for your roll call, or would I do it? Okay.
So, from DRC, Glenn Cass,
Travis Kaiser.
Great, thank you. Next, I would like, if we have any, first I'd like the adoption of the agenda, and this will be for, well, I guess this will be for everyone, so can I have a?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Public comments, do we have any public comments that are not on tonight's agenda, either in the room or online?
Chair, we have no speaker slips in the room, and if anyone on the Zoom webinar would like to make a comment within the purview of either the Planning Commission or the Design Review Commission, please go ahead and raise your hand now. This is on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. Seeing none.
Okay, thank you. Next up is consent calendar. Does anyone wish to remove items from consent calendar or any public comments? I see none. Can I have a motion to adopt the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We have no continued public hearing, so now we'll go to our study session, and I will hand that over to staff, please.
We are letting in Jean Eisberg to attend the meeting as a panelist, and thus she'll be able to share screen and present tonight's item as the project planner. Welcome, Jean.
Okay, thank you. I made it through the portal. Good evening, chairs and members of the Planning Commission and Design Review Commission. I'm going to go ahead. Oh, can I share my screen?
You're now enabled.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. This is a study session on application DR 18-24. This project site is located on Oak Hill Road, generally between State Route 24 and Mount Diablo Boulevard. This site had an approval last year After a number of study sessions and action hearings, this was a 53-unit version of the project. The applicant submitted a new application last fall for a 90-unit project. That was a SB 330 preliminary application. That application and the formal application are currently under review. And while the formal application is incomplete, the city can hold study sessions that don't count towards that SB 335 meeting limit. So this is a general study session to take comments on the design and massing of the project. Again, this proposal is for a 90-unit project that includes 11 below market rate units, 2,000 square feet of commercial area in a 7-story building. The current zoning as of today is Special Retail Business District, SRB. However, last week, the council held on second reading a rezoning to rezone the site to SRB 60, as in 60 units an acre. With that action, there was also a change to the general plan, ensuring that the zoning and the general plan are compliant. And this site is listed as a housing element opportunity site. The project's also compliant with the downtown objective design standards and design guidelines, including some waivers that I'll get to in just a minute. A little bit about the design. This is the ground floor plan. The project's oriented towards Oak Hill Road. You can see the residential lobby and access to the bike storage room. And the vehicle access is from Terrace Way, which is adjacent to the project site, accessed via an easement into the parking garage. The landscape plans and the plans you can see on multiple levels. I'm just showing a couple example sheets here. The ground level landscape plan, including some open space areas at the front of the building at the ground level. This is an example from level 5 of an outdoor common open space, and you can see podiums at level 3 and level 2, common open space areas. And then there's a number of balconies and terraces on the site. Looking at the south elevation, it's generally a 4-story visible from the street and then steps back in the upper 3 stories. And so if you're looking at Oak Hill, from the Oak Hill frontage, you generally see the first 4 stories. And then again, those top 3 stories are pushed back with the courtyard massing cutout at the center of the building. The project's proposed under state density bonus law, and through that, there's a request both for a density bonus as well as for waivers from some of the city's objective zoning standards. This includes building height, ground floor open space and landscaping, and the upper story step back waivers, among other waivers. There's one concession proposed to modify the size of the inclusionary housing units, the proportional size of those inclusionary housing units. And so the staff recommendation is just to hold this public hearing, accept public comments, review the proposal, and provide any feedback on the design and massing, including compliance with the city's objective standards. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
And maybe just for simplicity, when all these come up, we'll just be one group, so don't feel like we have to segment. So if you have a question, just pop your head up. And anyone have any questions for staff? Vice Chair Radnich?
Can you please repeat the part about the inclusionary housing? It was one of the last statements you made.
Sure. Let me bring the slide back up. So the city's inclusionary housing ordinance has a statement about requiring the same access to, generally access to amenities, the same types of units. And in this case, generally that would mean a proportional number of below market rate units as the total project. And so in this case, they are providing 3 one-bedroom below market rate units where 2 units would be required, 6 two-bedroom units, which is the requirement based on the proportion of the project as a whole, and then 2 two-bedroom units instead of 3 units. So they're essentially asking for a different mix of below market rate units compared to the project as a whole.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Would it be a, I want to make sure I do the right one. Would it be a concession if they had asked for more inclusionary units than required? On
If
the
they
mix?
want,
So let's say they, well, I guess maybe that's a dumb question. Because right now, the way I see it is there's a 3-bedroom required that got swapped to a 1-bedroom. Otherwise, it's exactly as it was outlined.
that's
So
correct.
that's the waiver, or is that the concession? I'm not-
That's the concession request
So if
because it has an actual cost impact on the project.
okay. So if there was more than 11 and they hit all the numbers as designated, then there would be no reason for a concession.
If they exceeded the 11 units, yes, I would say then they would have met the inclusionary requirement, and anything beyond that 11, as long as it was proportional, would just be over and above.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, thank you very much. I think we'll hear from the applicant now.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to present the updated project plans for what we will be presenting tonight. First, I want to thank you all for your time. This project and process started about 4 years ago when we started analyzing the site, and we went through a process entitling a 53-unit apartment building. Upon doing so, Lafayette was in the middle of their 6th cycle housing element update. And so doing with increasing the density from 35 to 60 units, we had to look at our partnership and understand what really is the highest and best use and what is the valid lifetime on the commercial office building that we were going to keep on the right side, closest and most adjacent to the freeway. And then how could we produce a plan that when you, as it's such a highly visible site, what is going to actually be the entry point into Lafayette? And what is the project, being local residents, that we're going to be truly proud of? We've tried to remain very patient as Lafayette's gone through the process. We decided to wait until the adoption occurred, not employ any builder's remedy or anything that could have seen as aggressive in this entitlement, so that we could work together with staff. I want to thank staff. They've been incredibly helpful through this process, helping us understand timeframes, helping us understand really how we are to approach this project with the upzoning as it went through. Currently building 950 Huff and a few other projects in Danville, we've seen a tremendous amount of demand on some of these condominium projects for, frankly, a lot of downsizers that are local to the 680-24 corridor that just don't have any viable other solutions other than moving out of state and or finding other sorts of accommodations that doesn't necessarily mean living in their community. So what's in front of you today is a reimagination of the total density across all 4 parcels, the merging of the 4 parcels together, and then what we think is a much higher quality designed and executed condominium plan that I think follows on the rest of the projects that we're trying to carry through. With that, I won't go too verbose since this is a study session. I'm happy to answer any questions after of kind of how we got here, but I want Isaiah to have proper time to explain what we've been doing and how we did it. One final comment. We tried to incorporate going through the 53-unit project, which I remember many of you were in those meetings. We tried to incorporate a lot of those comments in stepping and how we dealt with the siding and massing, how we dealt with open corridors, how we dealt with acoustics, how we dealt with some of the other issues that were key in some of the changes that we made to the prior entitlement, and then instructed that so that we had a better basis so that the improvements that were made both from our side and the side of going through the public process could be seen in the first time through with, I think, some strong improvements to the materiality and the rest of the actual look of this building. So thank you very much.
Good evening. Nice to be here with you tonight. I'm Isaiah Stackhouse of Stackhouse de la Pena Trachtenberg Architects, here to present our project. Thanks, Gene and Jeff, for the discussion so far. Okay, so here is a rendering of the new proposed project with Oak Hill standing across the street from it on Oak Hill. Just as a reminder, here's the previously approved project, the 53-unit project from last year. Here is the project site on Oak Hill, and this is Terrace Way here. Here's Highway 24, the off-ramp, and Mount Diablo Boulevard here. So the site located here is in the downtown in the SRB. It's about to be zoned to the SRB 60. Here are some circulation diagrams. Here is the ground level, pedestrian circulation on Oak Hill and auto circulation on Terrace Way. Terrace Way is sloped, and the site, as we'll see, is very sloped from corner to corner, almost 60 feet. And then the level 2, as Terrace Way slopes up, we're able to come into a second floor of parking here. So on the ground level here, we're proposing corner commercial that fronts Oak Hill and references downtown a block away. We're proposing significant setbacks in Oak Hill. You'll see in the landscape plans, these are very well landscaped wide sidewalks, residential lobby here, again, parking off of Terrace Way. And one note, something unusual about the project here is that we've really pushed these elevator and stair cores very, very far deep into the site. And we'll see how that plays out in the massing at the upper levels. Here's a level 2 plan, again, Terrace Way coming up, parking on the second floor. These are second floor units and residential courtyard here, served by the 2 elevator cores. Coming up, this is a level 5 plan. We've held the front of the project to 4 stories and pushed it significantly back from the sidewalks here from Oak Hill. This is a podium that climbs up to level 2 and level 3. And at level 5 here, this is actually at grade. Up at level 5 is a pool and amenity area. And then towards the front here with views of Diablo are amenity rooms and terraces. This is a level 6 plan showing the further setbacks and step downs. And finally, the level 7 plan here, where you can see we've peeled the building back all the way as far as we could to the cores here. Again, these cores are really, they're almost halfway deep into the site, and yet they're still able to connect, and we're able to get our 2 exits and also convenient lobbies connecting down to the parking and lobbies. Here is a section through the hillside on the north side here. You can see we're 4 stories, about 42 feet here, and then gradually stepping back in line with the hillside. Here is a photo montage view with the off-ramp here, Highway 24 up above us. Again, we've held this to 4 stories across here, and then it's terracing, stepping back. Here's a view from the other direction, looking up the hill, looking north on Oak Hill, and lower and stepping terraces. Here is the material palette. We're proposing a rich, earthy palette of high-quality materials, integral color plaster in 2 different subtle tones, inset aluminum windows, a wood accent material. We're looking at Thermary here for that, and then painted steel railings and balconies, Juliet balconies, highly articulated facades with lots of shadow play. And what we're trying to do here is really create a well-detailed, carefully crafted building that's designed to stand the test of time. Here's a evening view from the same vantage point. Here's the commercial space towards Mount Diablo and the main lobby here. Central courtyard that also really helps to break down the massing rather than presenting a large wall. It's really broken down with lots of relief and again, the large setbacks, well landscaped. Here are landscape plans, ground level, extensive pedestrian landscaping, and we're proposing 99 new trees spread throughout the project. Level 2 planting plan, level 3 podium, and finally the level 5 plan and terraces, roof deck terraces here. Thank you. That concludes our presentation, but we're here for your questions and comments.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Please.
So a significant number of the parking spaces are using a lift setup. Can you talk about that, how that is envisioned to work?
Yeah, so that's something that our office has a lot of experience with. I would say probably half to 2/3 of our projects these days have that. And part of this, we wanted this project, especially as a condo project, to be well-parked in terms of the number of spaces. It's important for, for the sales goals and for the project to function financially. We did, I think, we're trying to make the best use of the grades in creating 2 floors of parking. We simply weren't able to hit the counts. We didn't want to bring a parking garage all the way out to Oak Hill and have that impact the life of the facades, the life of the street. So we really wanted to, to keep it, back behind the facades. So that was sort of the balance point. We have 1 floor that's standard parking and 1 that includes lifts. And in terms of the function of the lifts, we've been for 25 years using parking machines. Parklift is one of the major companies, and they're based right here in the East Bay, and we've got a long history with them.
Could I just follow up on that? On the ones that are on the lift, are those, is it 3 or 2? Is it just 2 like this, or is there 3?
It's 3, and I should mention that they're, the lifts have evolved a long way since, I think the first ones I did were back in 1999, and they were, at that point, they were not independently accessed, and, you'd have to work with your spouse or your neighbor, to get your car out. That's not the way these operate. At this point, they're kind of on a conveyor belt, and you can go and get your car at any time. So the lifts go up and down, and then also side to side. You go over and hit your number, and the gate opens, and you back out your car. They take 30 to 60 seconds to retrieve your car, depending on where it is in the system.
This isn't, we don't need to know that, but I'm just curious, if I lived there, I would be thinking, it'd be really neat if I could, you can warm up your car on a cold day, like, I'm coming down,
Yeah.
Is it at that level yet, or is that
I don't think
not
it's
there yet?
quite at that level, but they are more and more sophisticated all the time. They now have, integrated charging. They've come a long way. There are a lot more companies out there that do them as well. But we still use Parklift USA for the most part. It's an East Bay company that has been around forever and has done a great job.
Okay, great. Any other questions?
Just since we're on parking.
Yeah.
Can you help me understand that, there's a parking design waiver to reduce the minimum width from 26 feet to 25 feet 4. Can you just explain why that's being done?
Yeah, it just has to do with the geometry of the building, and we did have some coordination between the two levels. The parking dimensions and grids aren't exactly the same between Park Lift and the standard parking up above. So we were, a few inches shy there, but well within, all turning radiuses and standard, parking standards vary from like 22 to 23 feet in San Francisco or Oakland, to 24, and, at 26 tends to be more on the commercial side. So if, in the way, when you have lots of commercial parking and people are unfamiliar with the lot, that's when you tend to see the bigger sizes. So, 26 is great for Safeway across the street. If you're in a garage that you're used to every day, we would typically see 24. So in terms of the function, we think it functions still very well.
Could you explain the detail underneath the steel railing on those balconies?
Oh, under here?
Yes, right.
Yeah, so that is proposed as a fully steel balcony. At the moment, we're planning to expose the expose the structure and the way it's built up. So. Yeah, so we'll see, you see it as a C channel around the outside. And then from the underside, we imagine that there will be some small I members that the decking is spanning on.
Not a plain metal facade.
Yeah, we're proposing it as a C channel steel element that will look substantial and not have a risk of oil canning or looking, thin.
Okay. Thank you.
Chair, staff, just for the benefit of the minute taker, who the minutes are prepared using the recording, if you could use the microphones, turn them on when you're asking a question or making a comment, and then back off for AV. So thank you.
Okay. Do we need to announce each person, or will they give that? Because I'm catching up on some of them, in terms of who's speaking, or is that okay?
No, we'll take care of the identifying the speakers.
Okay.
Thanks.
Commissioner Deming?
Thank you. Question regarding the upper story setback. My understanding is, from the wonderful report, is that it has to be a physically preclude the construction of the project with the density bonus. And so I'm trying to get to what's the physical preclusion of those requested waivers for the setbacks?
Yeah, so, one way to think about it is that prior to the bonus, essentially the project has built out the buildable massing, and then the bonus units then need somewhere to go. And so those bonus units, need waivers in order to physically go somewhere. So they'll go on the top. They'll fill in some of those setbacks in order to locate them somewhere. That's sort of the simplest way to explain it. Does that make sense?
So what they were saying is that based on the design you have, is that if you did adhere to the setbacks, the building could physically be built. It would just be you wouldn't get that density bonus units to qualify.
Exactly. And so the waivers then provide the space for those bonus units to be located.
Okay.
So without that waiver, you couldn't build the bonus units, and the project as proposed couldn't be constructed.
And then to that point, it's also asking to the, I guess, previous question, the concession for moving one of those, I guess, bonus units from a 3-bedroom to a 1-bedroom for the, below median rate. And so I'm curious what the reason, I mean,
Yeah, so the,
if you're wanting those bonus units, essentially, why do you then want to also downgrade?
yeah, so the state, the state bonus system, does two things. One is the waivers that allows you to physically place those units. And then the other avenue or mechanism to help these projects work and be able to happen, because again, the whole purpose of them is to be able to build the housing and to be able to build the affordable housing, but also to have a project that, that can move forward, that can be built. Depending on the level of affordability, the state, the projects are granted what are called concessions, or also sometimes called incentives. So those, the idea of it is that they, really the only requirement to qualify for it is that it helps reduce project costs. So in this case, having that, what would have been a 3-bedroom and building it out as a 1, it's still being provided, but it helps to reduce the construction costs of the project a little bit. And is therefore, the one concession that helps enable the project to move forward.
Sorry, to clarify, so you're saying that the building would essentially have one less 3-bedroom than it otherwise would have had? It's not that you're trying to say like this 3-bedroom that would otherwise be for below median is going to now be market rate. It's just there will not be a third.
Well, that 3-bedroom will be built as a 1-bedroom. So it'll still be an affordable unit. It's, just a, but, of those 11 total units, originally we had the full unit mix, and then, our team got together and said, well, hey, what incentive might we use here? We could have said, well, you know what, we're gonna reduce the cost dramatically, and we're gonna eliminate all parking from the project. So, we have projects, say in downtown San Francisco that don't want to build any parking. You could take the concession and not build any of the parking. Here, really in terms of the goals of the project, we want to provide the parking. So I identified the switch of that 1 unit, changing it from a 3 to a 1.
Isaiah, let me, following up on that, just because it's getting legal and technical, to answer directly, the waivers are to allow for the density to be built on this site. And we need each one of those waivers to be able to build to the project density, which has been considered. The concession is a price decrease so that we can actually build the project to the level that we're trying to build it. So one is a development standard, which is the waivers that we've requested to build directly to the actual density. The second is a reduction in the project cost, which is why we're asking for a 3-bedroom to a 1-bedroom.
And
Thanks, Jeff.
if I could to clarify again, so what is stopping, I guess, ultimately, my question would then be taking one of your market rate 3-bedrooms and having that one be the below market rate, and then you're within the compliance?
I mean, we can play this.
Feasibility or?
It all comes down to underwriting at the end of the day. I mean, I'm not going to sit on record in the city that I live in and try to play dancing around the roses, right? I mean, it comes down to economic feasibility and viability and project costs for the units that we have to build. And these units at VLI are going to sell between 195,000 to 210,000, I believe, 231,000, and the market rate counterpart, that will be the exact same unit, will be selling for about 1.2 million-ish. So the subsidy on the project of 15% inclusionary is significant.
What public art is provided on the project?
We haven't got into public art. It's a great question. excited about it, frankly, because we see a tremendous opportunity. What the prior conversations at the other hearings was based around what could potentially be done. You'll grab your cursor. There's two ideas that we're floating around right now. First is between the podium at the second or third level, doing some sort of hanging piece between the actual podium with some sort of art that goes through it, whether those are glass blown bulbs or something to that degree. But creating some sort of identity to the project within the actual podiums themselves. Second idea that we are contemplating, obviously we're in the design development side of it, is you get off the freeway, you have a welcome to Lafayette sort of sign there, doing something near the East Bay Mud Aqueduct so that every person that comes off the freeway in 24 that enters Lafayette is greeted by something that's attractive. Obviously, we'll go through our commission, but we haven't got deep into it quite yet.
Please.
So Terrace Way currently has a portion where it narrows down to one lane in this area. I didn't see anything in the plans about widening that. Is that part of your scope, something that you're thinking of to get two-way traffic through there?
It's a great question. We met with the owner of the property behind Terrace Way. Technically, Terrace Way is not a public road, and it's private in its entirety. So we're meeting with that neighbor now and trying to hopefully come to an agreement that there is some improvements for both that property as well as the property to where Uncle Hughes is as well. So I can't make any sort of representations how those direct negotiations will go, but yes, it is in our mindset.
I guess probably a question, more, I don't know, yourself or staff. I remember it come up in previous meetings, essentially for granting these, either a waiver or concession, do we have to adhere to a standard, essentially, like if they ask for one for, financial feasibility reasons, are we then obligated for future applicants to kind of hold ourselves to the same concession and waiver standards?
Well, we will have a deliberation time. That
Sorry.
might be good. No, it's good. It's your first time. But the answer is no, we won't hold ourselves to something because each one is on its own. I have a few just little ones, but I was kind of waiting, but does anyone else? And by all means, if they spark a question. On the commercial, is the commercial, I know it satisfies having mixed use. Do you see a demand for the commercial?
The meetings prior always wanted commercial there. And on the 53 units we went through, I think a large part of that is so that as you look up either from the Safeway side or down on Mount Diablo, you're looking back up at glass. And you have this more expansive glass sort of facade that hopefully brings people a little bit further. We all know from living here, once people get to Uncle Hughes, the rest of that streetscape moved all the way up to where our parcel is. It's not very active. And I work out of my offices at 1009 Oak Hill, and there's not much foot traffic that comes up. We hope there is. The back up with it is that if there isn't commercial tenancy, we would start figuring out a way to actually turn it into an amenity for the building so that it's not just vacant commercial space, if that's one of the questions or the insinuation of the question, because we also want that to be some sort of active space. But have we surveyed the retail market today? No. Is it a little bit far up there, broken away from Mount Diablo? Absolutely, yes. We're trying to react and design something adjacent to the lobby and looking down from that other corridor that people would feel is a beautiful facade from that side.
Yeah, that sounds like you guys are ahead of it. I question whether anyone would ever go up there. But I really like it. I wish a coffee store would go there. I just don't think they will.
We're all brainstorming similar conversations. It's yet to be seen. I think we might be ahead of the curve of getting it there, as there's other redevelopment in the area. I think that is a natural path to it, and it's also our commitment to staying towards that forward nature of it, so that we're not cutting it off and then you only have a residential use and now you're blocked off from commercial and retail walkability, et cetera. So in in hopes that you would incentivize people that are walking to BART to side. Hopefully they could stop there and actually get something for breakfast or lunch or something like that. But it's, we're trying to figure it out ourselves.
Okay, well, maybe, since it's a study session, it sounds like that's something I think you guys will continue to think about.
Yeah, I do think from that side, it does create a beauty about the building and a balancing, because you're building on grade on two different ways. And because you're building on the slope coming down the hill from the freeway as well, it balances out the podiums as we're putting it up. And if that was just residential use, I think the siding and massing starts to get a little bit harsher, where this breaks it up in a more palatable standpoint from both the pedestrian and the vehicles.
Yeah. And I didn't notice it before when I was reviewing, but I think when you were going through, the setback on the right side is farther back. Just out of curiosity, compared to what you brought before, was that one done like that? I thought it was all uniform before, in that the front of the building went up and then went back. And this one, I guess I'd call that the north, the part closest. It doesn't really matter. Was that a design feature? I think it's good. I like it. You know, we talked last time about coming off the freeway, how it's really tough there. I think whether your building's there or not, it's really tough there. I mean, if you could move the freeway underpinning, a little, that would help a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I know I won't be able to do that last part. What we ended up doing is, instead of coming in, you're coming into you see the difference between the units on the lower level versus now that retail mass that we just discussed.
yeah, and
So,
the prior project, wasn't across the full site. It maintained
Oh, that's right.
this
that's right.
existing building here, and then had residential down on the sidewalk here.
And that residential, I mean, the building that's maintained had parking in front of it, right?
Exactly.
So it was set back, yeah, or it is, okay.
exactly. So by taking down that building, you effectively turn that L shape into a U, and by taking a U, we came all the way out, and then we stacked up with that single podium.
Okay, I have one last one. One of the things I remember from last time, I believe, and I was very touched by it, and so I'm kind of questioning the change, but I know market conditions have changed, but I would love to hear your perspective, because you guys are financing this, and so you have to make it work. Last time you talked about your growing up in Lafayette and, wanting your friends to be able to come back. And I thought, if I'm remembering this wrong, if I'm not, please correct me. I thought the idea last time with apartments was to allow people who couldn't afford to pay to have a place. So I was a little saddened when I saw that this was, it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but I would like to hear it, because I think it's good to be on record for people who are curious why, to understand why a developer would do that, so.
Yeah, I can speak to that one. No one's more sad than me. The 2.5 years ago, when market conditions changed and the way that capital in the capital markets became as expensive as it has, what it effectively has done to us developers, whether it's rental or for sale, is you just simply cannot build one of these buildings to a profit today. And you cannot build it to a yield on cost that substantiates a cap rate, because no one knows what a cap rate is. Meaning, what can I build this to in my underwriting as a rental building versus what if I needed to sell it after I built it and stabilized it? Is there an incremental value creation between those two sides? And most projects in California, depending on how institutional you get, between 5% and 6% is the yield on cost in California that we try to build to. With cap rates where they are and with long-term interest rates where they currently are, even though we're starting to get some relief from a federal monetary level, just doesn't make sense. And there's a reason why we haven't seen any apartment buildings built here. There are apartment buildings that are obviously built in Walnut Creek, and in due time, I think we'll continue to see it, but it's going to take some monetary policy. And then it's going to take a little bit of more of an institutional standpoint to look at it so that the balance sheet is long-term in its outlook in the 20, 30-year level, whether it's a pension fund, an insurance fund, or otherwise. But as a small private developer, I unfortunately can't underwrite it.
So you don't think there's a chance in the next couple of years of enough change or it's just not here now?
Perhaps, but at the same time, unfortunately, My business works where I'm sitting in front of you today and those keys won't be turned for 3.5 years from now. So the hardest part of this business is trying to take that crystal ball of what is going to be the demand and where am I going to be at? What is the capital markets? Because we also have to consider what debt's going to be available to us once we even get ourselves through entitlement, construction documents, et cetera. With Silicon Valley Bank and First Republic Bank going under, and from a local regional bank level, the access to regional construction debt has tightened greatly. So it's a further sort of constraint on how we have to look at how we're going to build our capital stack to get this built. So what I think is forgotten a lot in our business is we're taking massive risk. And in that massive risk, we have to be thoughtful about how we're going to mitigate not only building the capital stack, but once we get to the end zone 3 to 4 years from now, which no one knows really what the market conditions are going to be at that time, this is the project that I believe is the best for the community. The other thing on the bright side is when you're building condominium, like a lot of our other projects, you can lean into the quality and you can lean into the materiality and you can lean in to trying to really excel at great design, which I believe Isaiah has done on this project, and really get into a project where you're investing as much as you possibly can into both the exterior and the interior, as well as the amenity spaces that you're developing. And I know that was a long response. And
I appreciate it. Okay, and this will be my last, more of a comment. If there's any way through the study session and continued economic change that you can possibly bring back that 3-bedroom inclusionary part of condo. I mean, I think about the fact that, and I've lived in Lafayette for, I don't know, 15, 16 years. You know, we all know it's a great place to be. It's really hard to afford to be here.
Yep.
And the people who really, I think, could use it are those, well, anyone who wants to be here could use it. But if I'm thinking about families who are really struggling with kids, and that's who's going to miss out. That's who wants that 3-bedroom, is someone who's got kids. Maybe wants to get their kid in a school that they think is better because it's here. So if you can.
Understood.
So with that, unless there are any other questions.
I had one more question, excuse me. So the fire district comments seemed like they might be significant. They talked about this project having to meet high-rise requirements and had fire truck access issues. Can you just address that?
Yeah.
Where that stands? And what I'm mostly interested in is that going to change what we've seen?
No, it's not. And the comments really, it's a great question. The comments really were, at this stage, it's just an entitlement set. There aren't CDs. We didn't include a full CD code analysis with it. But basically, the comment was, hey, just show us that it's not a high rise. It's very much not a high rise. It's not anywhere close. So yeah, none of those provisions will apply. We'll take care of that. We'll basically end up with two sheets. But yeah, high rise kicks in when you have a walking surface that's 75 feet or more above grade. And so it really kicks in for 8-story buildings around 85 feet, much higher than this building.
One other comment on it is we went through a process with the fire marshal at Contra Costa Fire Protection District on some of the other issues that were brought up in that letter. We went through an AMM process with them on the prior 53-unit entitlement to their satisfaction. So we have work to do with the fire protection district. The high-rise comment is just it's not understanding that we step the building back and you're not building from the bottom all the way up, single loaded all the way through. But some of the other comments and questions within it, we will be working with Contra Costa Fire Protection District to handle those, and we don't see any obstacles.
Any other ones? Okay. Thank you for answering all those. Let me get back to where the heck we were. All right, so now we're going to bring it back to the respective commissions. I'm sorry. We're going to open it up for public comment first. So if there's any public comment, both in here or online, if it's in here, there's a public comment slip. Please pass it up, or you can just raise your hand, probably. But Just please go ahead.
Please
If you don't
approach
mind
the
going up to the
podium,
podium and
use
just,
the microphone, and we'd be happy to receive your speaker slip after you speak.
maybe,
Is this on now?
yes.
Isaiah, probably for you, you were talking about the stacked parking. Are these going to be electrically operated?
So just one thing, so the questions you'll address
I'm
up
sorry,
here,
I'm
that's all
sorry.
right, and then we'll answer it, and if there's something that we really need to bring them in, we'll get it back to them, but, and if you wouldn't mind just telling us who you are and just,
My name is Jeff Lynches, and my wife Marcia Hazard. We're here from 980 Condit Road in Lafayette, and we were interested in seeing what you're doing on the corner there. Because coming off the freeway, it's difficult to make a turn. Most of it's blocked as you come down. Hopefully, this will improve things. But with the stacking, it's like the old Japanese style car parks, I guess you would call that. If they're electrically operated and there's a power outage, what do you do with the cars if you want to evacuate under fire? Because there's a lot of fires going around. Are there backup generators, or how does a person get their car out, first of all? And the other thing is that when we first came here, we were looking at apartments, but then I didn't realize that these are going to be for sale. And it's just an interesting twist here. I guess you're right, though, because you can't make any money with apartments these days. So as far as electricity is concerned, it's a major issue because the power goes out a lot. They shut it off when they shouldn't shut it off, obviously, for us. But for them, it's good. But if you can't get your car out of there, you're going to have to run out somehow. And there's got to be an escape route, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously that's been talked about in the past?
not that specific thing, but the applicant will come back up after public comment and after we talk, so we'll ask them to address that at that time. I hope they have an answer, but that's a good question.
Because the parking lot can be very efficient, but it has to run on something, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, no, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Any other public comments?
Chair, we have no other speaker slips in the room, and so turning to the Zoom, if any attendee would like to comment on this item, please go ahead and click the raise hand function now. Seeing none.
All righty. Could you guys, I'm sorry, applicant, do you guys mind just addressing that on the power outage question?
Yeah, there's typically there's power backup just for the actual units themselves, and they're hydraulic, and then they come down and people can exit if they need to. Another key part of it is the podiums as we build them, they're type 1B, so they're pretty much the strongest fireproofing that you can build. So it's a concrete and steel structure. So there's a few different things that we have to do from a fire side of not only the egress of, I should be speaking to the side, but it's contemplated in the way that we go through construction documents to make sure that anything that is emergency life safety is of primary concern.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I think we have no more public comments, so I will close the public comments. And I will bring it back to the commission for any discussion or deliberation. We're not really deliberating, so. Does anyone have anything they want to add?
We're opening up to commissioner comments.
Yes, anything, yeah.
Can you put up the facade? At least I can.
And maybe, because this is, I'm going off my normal script, this is a study session, so just stay up there, and that way we can make it a little more interactive. Thank you.
Okay, so obviously 7 stories is tall. And it's something to grasp onto. But when I look at the design, you know, I do like the fact that it's been terraced off of Oak Park. I do like the fact that there's a center court. And while we could reduce the height, we would be filling in the center court, and I don't think that's in our interest. I think the center court helps to reduce the mass, the look of the mass on it. I also think that, I guess you call it the podium level, the architectural detail horizontally above the commercial. I find that attractive. from the standpoint that it pulls your eyes from a pedestrian horizontally, so you're not seeing the buildings constantly as a vertical element on them. I like the shadow zones on the building. I like the color palette. I like the corner balcony areas where the window element, door element goes right to the corner. So again, once again, it doesn't have that massive building element to it that brings more of a light horizontal band into the picture. I did bring up the question regarding the C channels at the balcony. That's a detail that we'll want you to make sure that you stay with, because we have another project that was built in Lafayette that didn't come out right because it was cheap sheet metal instead of a stronger structural element. I like the idea of how the landscape areas follow the terrace, and those are public areas. At first, it was always a question, you expect the tenants to water those plants or whatever, but no, those are all public areas, and that works out well. Large number of trees, I like that. I see a lot of good aspects to the project. Thank you.
So I like the way that it steps back from Oak Hill Road. I think that's really positive and absolutely necessary. The part that gives me pause is on the south elevation, right? So the south elevation is where you really see the full height of the building. And I would just put out there, so the Terrace Way is not a very good roadway, to say the least. So if you are working with them, in your elevation, you're showing trees which don't show on the landscape plan on that elevation to soften it. But if there's an opportunity to get some trees on that elevation, I think it would be a really good thing. I think that however you could, if you're working with that roadway, to make some, tree wells, just even sort of street tree standard things, or make the planter boxes that you have there a little larger, whatever it is, to help give some relief to that south elevation, because it is going to be visible. If you go up Oak Hill, you're going to see it at an angle. It's going to look really big. I like the building overall. I think that the color palettes and the materials that were selected are right on target. They look great, I think. And I like the way the terraces and the landscaping all works with the composition. I think it's really nice. But the one area that I just say gives me pause is sort of that self-elevation, the Terrace Way, and that sort of the really tall mass that you're going to see. But other than that, thumbs up. Those are my comments.
Thank you.
Just a little minor thing. And this is minor, because tree permits and so forth are going to be handled later. But on the north side, there's going to be a retaining wall with a fence above it, right? And then there's trees to be removed on the property. But my recollection is there's a significant amount of trees just to the north, that are actually on East Bay Mud property. So my assumption is you'll be working with East Bay Mud to address trees, right? And roots and all that. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
First, I just want to say, absolutely love the design of the project. I think it's beautiful. I think it's an excellent location. Could not ask for a better multifamily unit location for minimal impact on, I guess, sort of things we'll get to later with traffic and things like that, being so close to BART, being close to downtown, so hopefully your people aren't having to drive around too much and filling all these other concerns up. But to get back to the original point, while I certainly do not mean to impine or to call anything one way or the other, the idea of switching out the third bedroom for the one bedroom, I mean, yes, I'll call it a $800,000 differential for that one unit for what you'd be able to do it on. Having sat in on what I can only imagine are relatively similar investment committee meetings and dealing with private investors and cap stacking and all, I find it pretty hard to imagine a scenario where the adhesion to that requirement to help out instead of a one bedroom, which would normally be, let's say, one or maybe two individuals, versus a family unit we could bring in here that might otherwise not be able to afford it, is going to turn your IRR into such a way that the investors will refuse to participate. More than happy to learn more, and it's certainly not within our purview to challenge that. It's just my personal experience. I would much rather like to see it saying, no, we're going to commit to this. We're going to bring in some of that good below medium rate requirements. So that's just what I'd like to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything?
Just a overall general approval. It is a big building and, but I think it's just a better design in so many ways, even than the previous project, even though it's larger. And I agree, I keep going back to the image on A 3.8, which I think gives you a really good understanding of the building. And still, when you're in a car or you're on the sidewalk, you're never going to see the whole mass of the building. You're going to experience it up close. So I would agree with the comments of the commissioner about just making sure that you pay extra care to that south facade for folks on Terrace Way. But other than that, I'm really impressed with the number of sort of tools that were implemented here, like in the really thoughtful design. I mean, I'm very enthusiastic about it, so way to go.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything? I echo that. You know, I didn't realize it was the same group at first, but I'm like, oh, they listened to what we did before. Great. You know, it's set back. I think this is beautiful. And we're not supposed to talk about the architecture side, but I really do think it's very nice. I really appreciated the point, because you probably have perspective on the IRR. I've never sat in investment committees, but I was curious if one would change a whole thing. But I'll just implore, like I did earlier, if you guys could do that. I think it would be one extra family in this community that would otherwise not get that chance. And I know we all want that. So if you can. The other thing I wanted to point out is when we were working on the housing element and we were trying to get to the numbers that were required by the state, which we had to get to, you know, one of the decisions was to upzone the upper half closest to the freeway all along. And this is a perfect example of what we were trying to do. And I think someday the southern face is going to have a sister building that might not be quite as dense, and maybe it'll step down. I hope it steps down just to show the fact that it's, you know, going up the hill as well. But I'm not saying don't do what was recommended, but I'm looking at also at A 3.8 and seeing in the future that will be another building, hopefully of similar aesthetics in terms of well thought out. And it'll kind of step up the hill as you go up towards the freeway, as your building kind of steps away as you go to the west. So I hope we've provided input that's helpful for you guys, and really appreciate you coming and getting this. So with that, I don't think, unless you have any other questions, I think for the study session part, we're good. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you for all the great comments and questions.
Thank you. All right. Give me a sec. Okay, so we have met all of our obligations for that. Number 6, number 7, no public hearing, no continued public hearings, no new public hearings. Other business, I believe this is planning commission only. You guys will do your own ARC volunteer at your own meeting, I believe. So, and for the benefit of you guys, so it's not every Friday, but as needed, we have these ARC meetings that are kind of to decide where projects, what level of review they should go to. So I would suggest sooner than later volunteer for one of these. They usually take about a half an hour prep work, and then you're at a virtual meeting, and with the DRC, there'll be one of us, one of the DRC and staff, and we'll walk through upcoming projects and decide who's going to look at them. So with that, we need one for the 31st, which is 10 days from now.
Quick comment. I enjoyed attending the last 2 ARC meetings, and I unfortunately have business I can't get out of for this Friday, the 31st.
And you're there, and we're supposed to share it amongst all of us, so don't feel because you're new, you have to do more, but you need to do 10 in a row, and then you can get.
Only if you're new.
No.
What time?
So it's at 9:30, and usually, you know, AM, virtual at home, so, and if you can't do it, don't worry about it, there'll be plenty of them, but if, yeah. Let me see. Oh, yeah, maybe you guys, I think everything else you don't need to be, if you want to leave, please, sorry.
They have to have somebody at the meeting, right?
Yeah, they'll do that in there, yeah. Sorry about that, you guys.
And thank you to the members of the Design Review Commission who are present this evening. Appreciate it.
Depends on how many, but I'd say every 3 weeks. Don't worry about it, you'll get plenty of them. Let me look, because I haven't done one in a while, I just have to look at my calendar.
Yeah, my work.
Okay, 31st. Oh, no, I am not going to be available.
I can do it.
You sure? Okay. I think we could volunteer Commissioner Heising for that one.
I think you
Could you
can.
check if he's available first, and if not, as a backup, maybe?
Well, I mean, I haven't done it in a while. I don't know.
She's available.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sturm.
There's always incentive to show up, or you get told for something. All right.
We're allowed to do that.
All right. So chair and vice chair elections. Was there any prep done? Because I don't know if none on my side.
I think on the agenda, you are seeing the prep that was done.
Okay.
No, it is not required. It's customary, generally annually, to rotate the chair. It's not obligatory by any means, and an individual, one commissioner has held the chair position for more than 1 year in recent past. Normally, the election, if you will, is done at the end of calendar year. I think we canceled the last meeting, and so it rolled to this year. We wanted to put it on as a reminder. You can certainly take action on it. We understand not all the commissioners are here this evening. If you'd like to push it to the next meeting, you can certainly do that. It's your option.
Unless anyone has it, why don't we push it just to let the other folks be here? And just for the newer folks, I would say, well, I'm sure everyone would love you to jump in on everything. I'd say just maybe, make your own decision, but go through some meetings before you volunteer for the chair or vice chair. And the vice chair, because I've done that, if you can do nothing the entire year, or you can do a lot, depending on if the chair shows up. But so we'll bring that to next one, if that's all right, and then I'll try to reach out. I'm fine going again, so unless someone who's. Anna?
Yeah, so I was gonna say, I am in favor of discussion at next meeting. I do hope, though, that between now and then, maybe we can think about if you yourself would be interested in serving in a position. I appreciate that you're volunteering again. I personally have a lot of commitments. I know there's other maybe commissioners who may or may not, but I'm hoping that at least we can let the commissioners know who aren't here tonight, remind them that we are going to be talking about this, so it's a well-informed discussion. I feel like last time there was a lot of, oh, should we do it this way? Should we not do it this way?
No hand banging.
Well, I do remember Greg said he wasn't interested. I do remember that, but I could follow up with him. I could talk to Gary as well, and then the rest of us just come in, and again, if someone wanted to step up, I would suggest for the newer folks, maybe not this time, wait a little bit. But if someone wanted to, I'm fine anything. Okay, so we'll push it for now. Do any commissioners reports, if anyone's on, so for you guys, if anyone's on like some subcommission or some other thing where you bring it back here to talk, this is when you talk to us. I don't think we have any though right now. And then planning director's report?
I previously emailed to the commission, and I think I was able to connect with the new commissioners, but I'll put out a reminder for everyone that there is a well-regarded Planning Commissioners Academy in Santa Rosa annually. I think it's through it's through APA and Cal Cities. It's through the university there, I think, as well. But that is March 5, 6, 7, I believe. And it is a very favorable schedule in that on the Wednesday, you can attend a morning session on AB 1234. There's a luncheon, but the programming starts essentially at 1 o'clock, so it's very achievable on a Wednesday. And then on Friday, it's a half day as well, so you can make it back home. We do have monies in the city budget to cover the costs of training and attending such things. So if you're interested, please let me know and we'll happily sign you up. And in prior years, prior planning commissioners have presented that in their professional capacity. And so it is a worthwhile if you can attend.
On before, and I did really enjoy it, and I got a lot out of it. One thing I think a lot of people deal with this is like, you go to the conference, you get all this great information, and then if there's not, you don't sort of have a process for what to do next when you get back, then it sort of can float away. So does the city, like, do you have sort of, a process for that? Like, hey, let's have notes, let's have like a recap together once we get back, like, so we can actually have some actionable items that come out of the learning experience?
Nothing formalized. So we would certainly, and we have the same issue at a staff level. If one or more people attend a training session or conference, what they learned is kind of shared and downloaded, whether it's through a brown bag or a staff meeting, and it's a brief, slide deck on one or two topics. We could certainly entertain that here at the commission if kind of the topics are appropriate. Else, we can certainly share out to the commission any slide decks or other resources that attendees get.
Right, so if any of us register, then they'll send the materials afterwards, and those could still be distributed to everyone, even those that didn't attend.
Often conferences will provide them, and if that's the case, yeah, we're happy to make them available to all the commissioners.
Can I ask a follow-up on that? Is that something potentially under item 10, commissioners' reports, that we could schedule ahead of time on an agenda, understanding specifically, like, just say you and I both attended, or us three attended, right? If we wanted to share with staff the key items that we wanted to share with the rest of the commission, I think that could be a good spot on the agenda. And we could plan ahead so that we all know kind of what we're each presenting, maybe, or sharing.
Absolutely. And, we can have the slide deck at the ready. Yes.
Sounds good.
All right. Anything else?
Nothing further this evening.
All right, we're done. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was nice to meet you. I don't think.
Likewise, thank you.
What was your first name?
Roger.